The suttas often talk about sense objects. So how would you explain to, say, somebody that wants to practice, what is a sense object? What are sense objects? How do you find them in your experience? How do you define them rightly?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, you have to be restrained in your actions, because through your actions, you put yourself in a position where you're already immersed in sense objects, and therefore you're not able to even see them as arisen things that you could get immersed in. So in order to be able to see what a sense object is, you basically have to look at what are the ways in which, regardless of what views you have about the sense objects, you would already be involved with them. And so that's sensuality, not keeping the precepts. These kinds of actions, like even though you might then philosophize about what sense objects are, you're already completely tunnel visioned into them simply by living in that way. So then, if that's established, you're mostly withdrawn from those actions, then sense objects would kind of be they're not things that you can observe or get focused on in the same way as, the wrong way that people would go about it is trying to focus on their sensations usually. But and this idea that it's zoning in on them and zooming in on them, but really you have to see sense objects includes the mind as well, mental objects. Those are the ones that most people are often not aware of and not clear about, that these are options of, you could almost call them like options of exploration, options of going down and exploring the particulars, as the suttas describe. And the task is not to then find a particular definition of what sense objects are, but learn how to not get absorbed in those particulars as such. See them as options that you could get absorbed in, but you choose not to.
So, but I mean, what one could argue that sight, sound, smell, taste, touches is something you can zoom in on.
Yeah, you can, but that's the thing. If you do, you lose perspective of because the thing is, you don't want to have perspective of sense objects. You want to have perspective over the dimension of the senses.
Right, but the question is, are those the sense objects?
What do you mean those?
Sight, sound, smell, taste, touches.
Yeah, but like those are sense objects, but that's not where your development should be. It shouldn't be about examining them or zooming on them further. You want to see the domain of the eye, the domain of the ear, the domain of the
What is that?
nose.
That's too abstract. That's too abstract for, say, anybody that's not familiar with philosophy. It's like, so I want to practice.
Mm-hmm.
The suttas talk about sense objects. You said I shouldn't be zooming in on them, shouldn't be, lose perspective and so on. And I should be seeing the domain instead. What is that? How do I make sense of that?
Well, the domain is like...
Practically, give me an example.
Where you find the pressure to go, to examine further, to look further, to smell further, such as sensuality in general, pleasant sense objects.
Mm-hmm.
Things that you shouldn't just examine random neutral sense object in the world. You will understand this principle if you go where the pressure is. Things that are emotionally charged in one way or another, that you can't just be indifferent towards.
And right, so you're saying that one should look at the pressure that one feels towards sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, rather than examining sight, sound, smell, taste, touches. Is that correctly understood?
Yeah. So find the pressure first, and then through that you will get to see that principle of descending onto the particulars that the suttas describe.
But what if there's no pressure? What if I can't see any pressure?
Well, if that's truly the case, then either you're an arahant or there's something that you're overlooking, something that you're still, because you cannot be neutral. You cannot be in like a neutral, completely uninvolved situation. You have to be over-attending something. Unless your mind is fully developed, you will be over-attending or not seeing, not having perspective in regard to some sense object, even if it's neutral, ambiguous, unclear.
In regard to sense objects, not having perspective?
Yeah, so
what do you mean?
Because the mental.
So if I feel no pressure, I mean, like somebody might legitimately say, well, I'm not pressured to look at anything, so what do I do then?
Well, but is there something that you are...
Like I feel neutrally. There's no pressure, there's no craving, there's no lust, there's no aversion. I feel neutrally. Where's the pressure? What do I look for?
Well, but the thing is...
According to you, pressure's always there.
Yeah.
That's what you said. So where is it?
Well, pressure's always there, but it's not going to be always in the way that you expect to find it.
So how do I find it?
You can, in that state of, let's say, supposedly not being pressured, you might not be pressured towards the specific things that you were pressured before, but can you truly say that if you just kind of take your hands off the situation, so to speak, that the mind won't be drifting into something on its own, such as boredom or fantasizing things about the past or planning about the future, or even just a state of dullness, which kind of carries its own momentum. You didn't ask for it; it just comes like that on its own. So then, if that's still there, that means, well, that is another experience, another object, I guess you could say, which you would also have to maintain perspective in regard to. That those other directions that you would be falling down into when there's no pressure, you don't want to think as if, oh, there's nothing here.
So in other words, just wait a bit and see, because the pressure will come up.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
like if seemingly there is no pressure, it's not, well, it's either because, as you said, you're already an arahant, or it's because you're simply not discerning it at the time.
Yeah. So it will be clear that in that state, even when you thought there wasn't pressure, there was some, at least.
Like a subtler pressure than what you're used to.
That might not fit the definition of like the coarse sensuality that you were expecting, but clearly the mind would be kind of tugging by itself.
It's not neutral.
Exactly.
So then would you say that sense object is something you can attend to, focus on, concentrate, look at directly, but as you said, that's not the point. The point is to look at the pressure that's making you do it.
Yeah, because in the suttas, it's not just understanding the sense objects, it's understanding the sense bases. And the sense bases are completely obscured to the extent that you descend into the objects.
But if I just, study the sights, wouldn't that reveal me the nature of vision, nature of the eye?
Well, no, because it's the eye that you would be using to study the sights. So it's like a camera recording itself kind of thing. You can't possibly arrive at it through examining the objects that come on account of it.
But what if I really, really study the sights, like to the kind of microscopic degree, in between the moments, like really to the greatest detail?
But that's
wouldn't that show me?
The eye, as the Sutta described, the eye is like, or all of the six senses, they're like these animals that are pulling you in separate directions. So it's not this kind of technical sort of mechanism that you discover. It's that the eye is on the level of that pressure that you feel. It's more a direction of that being pulled rather than, again, some mechanism that you understand.
So what you're saying is that regardless of how particular things eye might be seeing or how general sights the eye might be looking at, nowhere in that domain, nowhere in that field of like the atomic particles or, staring at the gigantic mountains, nowhere in that field is eye to be found. It doesn't matter how slowly, how precisely, as I said, how meticulously, how microscopically you're looking, simply eye cannot be anywhere there.
Yeah, and the Buddha described it as these empty villages, or empty kind of...
Which one?
The sense spaces.
Uh-huh.
That are attacked by bandits. So then...
Bandits being?
Bandits being the sense objects.
Uh-huh.
So...
Raiding.
Yeah, being raided by
the
bandits.
empty.
So if you are examining sense object, doesn't matter how complex or special they are, you're examining the bandits. You're not examining the empty village.
Mm-hmm.
So that empty village can only become apparent as such precisely when you stop being concerned and engaged with some extent of bandits that will inevitably be there.
Microscopic bandits.
Yeah.
So then the sight, sound, smell, taste, touches are attacking the fields. They're not, it's not that the fields are there. Well, hold on, is that what you're saying? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's not that the fields are there seeing sight, sound, smell, taste, touches. Fields are there known because they're being attacked.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can't...
So can you explain that?
So you can't try to abstract the eye as an independent thing that you find like first purely by itself.
Why not? I mean, you can surely think it.
Yes, but...
What's the problem with that?
But the eye has to be found as an implication when sense objects are there, but they're not being absorbed and focused on.
But what is this eye that I'm thinking of?
Well, that's another mental image.
And what's the problem with that?
Well, it's not a...
I can focus and not forget about it and concentrate on it and think about it frequently.
But that's the thing. If it's divorced from the sights, if it's divorced from what's felt in regard to the sights, if it's divorced from that pressure, then that's not the actual I that, because of which you suffer, because that you have all these assumptions in regard to. So it's the I that has some kind of pressured relationship towards the sights. That's the one that you want to see, not just an idea of it.
So if what you're saying is if you don't see or if it becomes divorced from a pressure, it ceases to be that I, that field, that phenomenon.
Because if there's not that pull, then it's not that animal of the eye that the Buddha described. It's just some idea that then, as much as you might develop it, is disconnected from the problem of suffering.
So say I make the effort now and catch myself when I start falling into abstractions or focusing and concentrations on the sense objects, thinking that will reveal me the true nature of the eye or the fields or the village, the empty village. So how do I train rightly then, to completely, fully surmount that whole duality of sense objects and sense fields?
Right. Well, starts with the same thing that I described in the beginning. You have to have ceased specific actions toward those sense objects that automatically have you taking for granted that pressure and not seeing it by just acting out of it. Then, on the basis of that, you have to keep an eye throughout your day on that pressure that will be there to some extent. You have to, because as soon as you start ignoring it and overlooking it, you're automatically taking it up. It's not a separate movement. You're automatically failing to see that village being attacked by bandits.
How do I avoid falling into ignoring it and overlooking it?
Well, it's...
Do I need to concentrate on it the whole day?
That's the thing. It's even if you were to go and concentrate, it wouldn't change anything about the fact of where it already is, arisen on its own. So you have to...
But concentrating can help me stay in touch with it, no?
Well, but that's the thing. Anything you're concentrating into is already like... It's almost like you had to stay at the beginning of this path to see the crossroads, so to speak. And anything that you concentrate on, you're just going down one of those crossroads. So
you mean like if I start concentrating, I lose contact with that pressure?
Yeah.
Because of which I would be concentrating.
Yeah. The pressure is still there, but your emphasis and your kind of weight of your attention is now directed in such a way that you won't be able to see it.
Okay, so how do I then not lose the sight of it without needing to concentrate on it?
Well, you just have to ask yourself, because again, well, first of all,
what if just something comes up and naturally distracts me? Does that mean I lost the sight?
No, because even then you can be aware of how you're being pressured in regard to that new thing that arose. You don't have to focus on that. You don't have to kind of overly clarify that thought. You can, in most general terms, have a background awareness of how do I feel right now.
Yeah, but I forgot to ask that question because distracting things came up in my life.
Yeah, but...
So does that mean I lost the touch with it? Does that mean I lost the mindfulness, or...?
If that clarity, like that clarity might fade to some extent or the other, and that's inevitable, but what matters is when the clarity is lost and you kind of double down on the actions that result from the lack of perspective, then even if you try to regain it, like that's different.
So if I don't, say something comes up, people's lives are busy. Say you had a clarity about the sense fields and the peripheral, the pressure that's there underneath it and so on. Something comes up, factual requirement to deal with things that preoccupies your attention, so you lose that clarity. But then you're saying now, but if I don't double down in actions of, well, I presume unsuitable kind, so say I don't double down, but I lost the clarity because I got distracted. Does that mean I lost the touch with it? So I haven't acted out, but I haven't maintained the clarity either.
Yes, but that's not a problem in itself, because you will see, if you didn't act out and double down, if you wanted to reestablish the clarity, it wouldn't be that difficult. But if you did double down and you did just proliferate in further actions, you would see that even if you try to bring up these ideas, the whole thing is now abstract, because you're just kind of inflamed, so to speak, from all this indulgence that you engage with. So that neutral kind of forgetfulness will not, it doesn't kind of undo completely the degree of clarity that you could have built. You could restore it just by trying to bring it back.
So
that's how you could measure, am I acting out too much? Am I kind of spilling out too much? It's if afterwards you feel like all this stuff is just, before it was clear and now it feels kind of just abstract and just almost as if you hadn't clarified these things before, and you have to keep restarting it from scratch every single time.
And you say that's because a person would have been acted out,
spilling out
in unsuitable ways.
Yeah. Even if they don't appear to them as unsuitable ways, if it got to the point where you can't just resume your clarity, then and again it feels like you had to start from scratch every time. That means you were spilling out too much. You were kind of allowing too much emphasis and focus on those factual things that you have to deal with, because that's the thing. Initially, it might feel like it's either or, like either maintain this clarity or I engage with these things. But the more you understand it, the more you realize...
But as I said, sometimes you have to engage with things.
Yeah.
How do you then guarantee that you won't spill out too much?
Well, you have to
Is there a criteria?
You have to be contained by the precepts, first and foremost.
So then spilling out too much would be if things you have to deal with require you to break precepts.
Yeah. That would be the coarsest way of spilling out too much.
So then, doesn't matter what you need to deal with. If it's against the precepts, you don't deal with it.
Yeah.
If it's within the precepts?
Well, if it's within the precepts, that's what I was going to say. You got to realize that it doesn't take this kind of humongous concentrated effort to keep perspective of these things, because they're already there in your experience. Like the way you're being pressured right now, no matter what you're doing.
So the pressure is already there.
Yeah.
You're contained by the precepts.
Yeah.
And then you might, as I said, legitimately get distracted by something. But then you have those same things to come back to because they're still there.
Yeah. Your whole actions and your decisions that you're making, even if you were ignoring the pressure, would be based on the pressure. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it only exists when you look at it.
So what you're saying, you can, if you don't spill out, you can ignore it only so far.
Yeah.
Because it's there,
exactly.
pressuring you.
Yeah. So then you want to tune that connection with it, I guess you could say, so that it doesn't require you to like pause, again, things that are not against the precepts. Doesn't require you to pause completely and kind of go through these mental motions to then reestablish it. You want to see, regardless of what I'm doing, you want to be able to find it there. Because if you have space to think and plan and remember and do whatever, you definitely have space for this, because all of that stuff takes even more effort than being aware of what's already there.